Have you ever wondered why someone who acts distant, cold, and emotionally unavailable still seems unable to forget one particular person? They disappear, avoid conversations, and convince themselves they've moved on. Yet that same face keeps appearing in their thoughts at the most unexpected moments. The truth is that some connections don't end when communication stops. In fact, silence can make them even louder. And when a deeply empathetic person crosses paths with someone who fears emotional closeness, the impact can linger far longer than either of them expects. Today, we're exploring the super empath who lives in the avoidant's head 24/7 and the hidden psychology behind why an avoidant can walk away physically but struggle to let go mentally. Many people assume that emotional distance means emotional indifference, but that is often far from the truth. Some individuals become experts at hiding what they feel, even from themselves. They learn to rely on independence, logic, and self-protection instead of vulnerability. Over time, this creates a habit of suppressing emotions rather than expressing them. Then, unexpectedly, they meet someone whose emotional awareness cuts through those defenses without force or manipulation. A highly empathetic person has a unique ability to notice the emotions that exist beneath the surface. They don't simply hear words. They pay attention to tone, body language, hesitation, and silence. They often understand feelings that have never been spoken aloud. This experience can be deeply unsettling for someone who has spent years avoiding emotional intimacy. They may not know why they feel exposed, but they sense that this person sees parts of them they usually keep hidden from the world. Instead of feeling completely comfortable, they may become conflicted. One part of them appreciates being understood, while another part fears the vulnerability that comes with it. That inner conflict can create a powerful emotional imprint that doesn't disappear when the relationship or friendship ends. The empathetic person often acts like a mirror, reflecting emotions back without criticism or judgment. Rather than telling someone who they are, they create space for that person to recognize themselves. For someone who avoids emotional closeness, this can be both comforting and intimidating. It forces them to confront feelings they have spent years ignoring. Even if they pull away physically, the emotional reflection remains in their memory. Long after conversations have stopped, they may find themselves remembering small moments that once seemed insignificant. A simple question, a thoughtful gesture, or a quiet moment of understanding can replay in their mind without warning. These memories stand out because they were different from ordinary interactions. They represented a rare moment of feeling seen rather than evaluated. The mind naturally returns to experiences that feel unfinished or emotionally meaningful. When someone leaves before those emotions have been fully processed, the memory can become even stronger. The empathetic person's kindness and understanding continue to exist in the avoidant person's thoughts because those experiences challenge long-standing emotional habits. This does not mean every empathetic relationship has this effect, nor does it mean every emotionally distant person reacts the same way. Human relationships are complex, and individual experiences vary widely. However, psychology suggests that moments of genuine emotional recognition can leave lasting impressions, especially for people who are unaccustomed to feeling deeply understood. In many cases, what remains is not constant longing, but quiet reflection. The memory of someone who seemed to understand without demanding explanations can resurface unexpectedly, reminding them of a connection that felt unusually authentic. Sometimes the people who make the deepest impression are not those who stayed the longest, but those who briefly made another person feel completely seen. Many people believe that once communication stops, emotions disappear as well. They assume that silence means someone has forgotten, moved on, or no longer cares. Yet human psychology is often far more complicated than that. Emotional connections do not always fade at the same pace as physical contact. In some cases, distance can actually make certain memories feel stronger because there are no new experiences to replace them. The mind begins to fill the silence with reflection, unanswered questions, and imagined conversations that never happened. For someone with avoidant tendencies, creating distance is often a way of managing emotional discomfort rather than proving a lack of feelings. When a relationship becomes deeply personal or emotionally intense, they may instinctively pull away to regain a sense of control. Instead of discussing their fears openly, they may withdraw, stay busy, or focus on work and daily responsibilities. From the outside, this behavior can appear cold or uncaring, but internally, they may still be processing emotions they do not fully understand or know how to express. Silence can become an unusual space where emotions grow louder instead of quieter. Without regular conversations or interactions, memories are no longer balanced by everyday reality. The mind begins replaying meaningful moments, searching for understanding or closure. A random song, a familiar place, or even a particular scent can suddenly bring back vivid memories of someone who once made them feel understood. These reminders appear unexpectedly, interrupting ordinary routines and bringing emotions back to the surface. Psychologists often describe this as the lasting effect of emotionally significant experiences. Events connected with strong feelings tend to remain more accessible in memory than ordinary daily interactions. When a relationship ends without complete emotional resolution, the brain may continue revisiting those experiences in an attempt to make sense of them. This does not necessarily mean someone wants to restart the relationship, but it can explain why certain people remain present in their thoughts long after contact has ended. Distance also creates room for imagination. Without new information, people often remember the best moments while forgetting everyday imperfections. Small acts of kindness, shared laughter, or moments of deep conversation can become more meaningful over time. The absence of contact allows those memories to stand out, making the emotional impact feel larger than it did in the moment. Of course, every individual is different, and not everyone experiences distance in the same way. Some people move on quickly, while others need much longer to process emotional experiences. Attachment styles influence behavior, but they do not determine every person's actions or feelings. Still, many people discover that physical separation does not automatically erase emotional significance. In the end, silence is not always empty. Sometimes it becomes a place where memories echo more clearly than words ever did. A person may walk away from a relationship, stop sending messages, and appear completely unaffected, yet still find themselves unexpectedly remembering someone who once touched their life in a meaningful way. Distance can separate two people physically, but the emotional impact of a genuine connection may continue long after the conversations have ended. For many people who struggle with emotional closeness, trust does not come easily. They may value independence so highly that relying on another person feels uncomfortable or even risky. Past experiences, family dynamics, or previous relationships may have taught them that vulnerability leads to disappointment or loss of control. As a result, they often keep their emotions carefully guarded and maintain a safe emotional distance from others. While they may desire connection like anyone else, they can find it difficult to fully relax and believe that someone will accept them without judgment. When they meet a deeply empathetic person, that experience can feel unfamiliar. Instead of demanding constant reassurance or pushing for immediate intimacy, the empathetic person often offers patience, understanding, and emotional presence. They create an environment where feelings can exist without criticism or pressure. This kind of acceptance may be something the avoidant individual has rarely experienced, making the relationship feel both comforting and confusing at the same time. Feeling emotionally safe is different from simply feeling attracted to someone. Safety comes from believing that mistakes, fears, and imperfections will not automatically lead to rejection. An empathetic partner or friend often communicates this through consistent actions rather than dramatic gestures. They listen without interrupting, remain calm during disagreements, and show compassion even when conversations become difficult. These small moments gradually build a sense of security that can be deeply meaningful for someone who is used to protecting themselves. At first, the avoidant person may enjoy this sense of calm without fully recognizing its importance. They may appreciate the kindness but continue to keep emotional walls in place. As the connection grows deeper, however, those walls may begin to feel threatened. Greater closeness often requires greater vulnerability, and vulnerability can trigger fears they have carried for years. Rather than leaning into the relationship, they may instinctively create distance to reduce their discomfort, even if they genuinely value the other person. After the relationship changes or ends, the memory of that emotional safety can remain surprisingly powerful. They may meet new people and build new relationships, yet notice that something feels different. Conversations may seem more superficial, emotional support may feel less genuine, or the sense of calm they once experienced may be difficult to find again. They may not consciously compare every new relationship to the old one, but the earlier experience can quietly shape their expectations of emotional connection. This does not mean that one person is irreplaceable or that future relationships cannot become just as meaningful. People grow, heal, and form new bonds throughout life. However, experiences of genuine emotional acceptance often leave lasting impressions because they satisfy a basic human need to feel understood and valued. The memory that stays with them is often not about perfection or constant happiness. It is about how they felt when they were around someone who allowed them to lower their guard without fear. That feeling of safety can become a quiet reference point in their mind, reminding them that authentic connection is possible even if they struggled to embrace it fully at the time. It is often surprising how the smallest moments in a relationship can become the ones that stay with us the longest. Grand gestures and dramatic events may capture attention in the moment, but quiet conversations, brief smiles, or simple acts of kindness often leave a deeper emotional imprint over time. For someone with avoidant tendencies, this can be especially true because emotional processing does not always happen immediately. Instead of fully understanding what they are feeling in the moment, they may only recognize the significance of an interaction weeks, months, or even years later. During a conversation, an empathetic person may ask thoughtful questions, offer encouragement, or simply sit in silence without making the other person feel uncomfortable. At the time, the avoidant individual might respond casually or change the subject, appearing unaffected by the exchange. They may even convince themselves that the interaction was ordinary and move on with their day. Yet, somewhere beneath the surface, the experience has been stored in memory, waiting to be understood. As time passes and life becomes quieter, the mind has an interesting way of revisiting unresolved experiences. A random moment while driving, working, or lying awake at night can suddenly bring back a conversation that once seemed insignificant. They may remember the exact words someone spoke, the expression on their face, or the warmth in their voice. What felt ordinary in the past now carries emotional meaning that was not recognized at the time. Psychologists suggest that people often revisit memories connected to unresolved emotions because the brain naturally seeks understanding and closure. When someone avoids emotional vulnerability, those feelings may remain unprocessed until a later stage in life when they are more prepared to face them. This delayed reflection can make old conversations feel surprisingly powerful. The avoidant person may suddenly realize that a simple comment was actually an expression of care, support, or affection that they were unable to fully appreciate at the time. Small gestures can also gain significance through repetition in memory. A compliment that was brushed aside, a moment of patient listening, or a quiet act of kindness may replay again and again because it represented something rare. The memory is not necessarily about the event itself, but about the emotional experience attached to it. These recollections often become symbols of understanding, acceptance, or emotional safety that the individual did not realize they valued so deeply. Of course, not every memory has profound psychological meaning, and every person processes emotions differently. Some people reflect immediately, while others need much more time to understand their own feelings. Attachment patterns can influence this process, but they do not determine every individual's experience. Human relationships are shaped by personality, history, and circumstance, making every emotional journey unique. Even so, many people discover that the conversations they remember most are not the dramatic ones, but the quiet exchanges that made them feel seen and understood. Long after the relationship has changed or ended, those simple moments may continue to return unexpectedly, reminding them of a connection that quietly influenced their life. Sometimes the words we barely noticed when they were spoken become the ones we carry with us the longest. Sometimes what stays with a person after a relationship ends is not only the memory of the individual, but the emotional experience they created together. Human beings often remember feelings more vividly than specific events. We may forget the exact words that were spoken or the details of a particular day, yet we can still recall how someone made us feel in their presence. A sense of comfort, acceptance, or emotional peace can leave a lasting impression that continues long after the relationship itself has changed. For someone with avoidant tendencies, this emotional experience can be especially significant. People who are uncomfortable with vulnerability often spend much of their lives protecting themselves from emotional dependence. They may avoid difficult conversations, keep relationships at a safe distance, or rely heavily on independence as a way to feel secure. Because of these habits, moments of genuine emotional closeness can be relatively rare. When they encounter someone who creates an atmosphere of patience, understanding, and acceptance, they may experience a level of emotional safety that feels unfamiliar. At the time, they may not fully recognize the importance of that feeling. They might focus on practical concerns, personal fears, or the discomfort that intimacy can bring. Their instinct may even be to create distance in order to regain a sense of emotional control. However, after time passes, they may begin to realize that what they miss is not simply the person's presence, but the unique emotional environment that existed when they were together. The feeling of being accepted without constant pressure can become a powerful memory. It may have been the freedom to express thoughts without fear of criticism, the calm that came from being listened to with genuine attention, or the quiet confidence that someone cared without demanding perfection. These experiences often meet deep emotional needs that many people rarely have the opportunity to experience consistently. As a result, they can become difficult to forget. When entering new relationships, people naturally compare present experiences with past ones, even if they do so unconsciously. The avoidant individual may notice that something feels different but struggle to explain exactly what is missing. They may enjoy spending time with someone new while still sensing that the same emotional ease or understanding is absent. In many cases, the comparison is not about physical attraction or shared interests, but about the emotional atmosphere that once existed. Psychological research suggests that emotional memories often influence future decisions and expectations. Positive experiences of acceptance and safety can shape what people seek in later relationships, while unresolved emotions may continue to surface until they are acknowledged and understood. This does not mean that every past relationship remains emotionally unfinished, nor does it mean that future connections cannot become equally meaningful. People continue to grow, heal, and build new experiences throughout life. Still, certain emotional experiences become reference points that quietly shape the way we understand connection. The memory that remains is often not about perfect moments or idealized romance, but about how naturally someone made us feel accepted as ourselves. Long after names, dates, and conversations begin to fade, that emotional memory can continue to influence the heart and mind, reminding us that genuine understanding and emotional safety are among the most valuable experiences any relationship can offer. Healing rarely follows the same timeline for everyone. Some people process their emotions by talking, reflecting, and gradually accepting what has happened. Others cope by pushing their feelings aside, focusing on work, responsibilities, or daily routines in an attempt to avoid emotional discomfort. While both approaches may seem effective in the short term, they can lead to very different long-term experiences. The person who allows themselves to feel and process their emotions often begins to recover sooner, while the person who suppresses those emotions may find them resurfacing unexpectedly much later. A deeply empathetic person often confronts emotional pain directly. They may spend weeks or months grieving the loss of a relationship, questioning what happened, and learning from the experience. This process can be difficult, but it allows them to gradually regain emotional balance. Over time, they begin investing energy in personal growth, friendships, family, and new opportunities. As healing progresses, the relationship becomes part of their life story rather than something that defines their future. Someone with avoidant tendencies may take a very different path. Instead of sitting with uncomfortable feelings, they may distract themselves through work, hobbies, travel, or new relationships. From the outside, they may appear to have moved on quickly and effortlessly. Friends and family may assume they are unaffected because they rarely speak about the relationship or express visible sadness. However, emotional suppression does not always eliminate feelings. It often delays the process of understanding them. Months or even years later, an unexpected reminder can bring old emotions back to the surface. A familiar place, a meaningful song, or a simple conversation can suddenly trigger memories that seemed forgotten. At that moment, the avoidant individual may begin reflecting on experiences they never fully processed. They may think about conversations they dismissed, moments of kindness they overlooked, or opportunities for vulnerability they avoided because they felt uncomfortable at the time. Psychologists recognize that delayed emotional processing can occur when people habitually avoid difficult feelings. The brain often revisits unresolved experiences in an attempt to make sense of them and integrate them into a person's understanding of themselves and their relationships. This does not necessarily mean they want to reunite with the other person, but it can lead to questions about choices they made and opportunities they did not take. Meanwhile, the empathetic person may already be living a very different chapter of life. Having worked through the emotional challenges, they may have developed greater confidence, healthier boundaries, and a clearer understanding of what they want in future relationships. They may have built new connections and found happiness in ways they once thought impossible. The emotional work they invested earlier allows them to move forward with greater peace. Of course, every individual heals differently, and attachment styles do not determine a person's destiny. Many avoidant individuals grow emotionally through self-awareness and supportive relationships. Just as many empathetic people continue to face their own challenges, human behavior is complex, and no single pattern applies to everyone. Even so, it is not uncommon for people to appreciate the value of a meaningful connection only after enough time has passed for perspective to develop. Sometimes the greatest lesson comes not from losing someone, but from realizing too late how deeply their presence influenced your life. By then, the other person may have already embraced a new future, while the memory quietly remains as a reminder of what genuine emotional connection once felt like.